Going beyond the headlines. Asking the questions you want answered. Exploring government policies and how they impact you. We are delving deeper.
Good evening and welcome to Delving Deeper. I am your host, Diana Carter. Joining us this evening is the president of the Diabetes Association of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Andrew Dhanoo. Dr. Dhanoo, welcome to the show.
Good evening and thanks for having me.
Now, Dr. Dhanoo, tell us a little bit about the Diabetes Association.
Well, the Diabetes Association has been around for the last 36 or so years, as old as I am. Our mission is really to work with people living with diabetes and, of course, work with people affected by diabetes. Our three main goals are to work towards education or increasing education and education among people living with diabetes and people who might be affected by diabetes. Research in that we are uniquely able to answer the questions which are particularly needed in Trinidad and Tobago. And, of course, education among older people, younger people. We do a lot of education activities in school. And of course, there's a fourth pillar, which is screening. So we do quite a lot of screening for diabetes and screening for diabetic complications as well.
Okay. Now, you told me while we were off camera that you have been president of the association for 7 years. Yeah. Tell us how that tenure has been, especially since you said that, well, you revealed that you were 36 years old. Yeah. So tell us how that has been as a young person in charge of the association.
Well, being in charge of the association as a young person, I don't think I'm as young anymore, but when I used to be much younger and I started in the organization, I came in, actually before I was president, I came in as a volunteer. So I came in about 10 years ago. Just before I finished my first degree, actually, I was introduced to the association at an event, a symposium. At that time, I was an intern with Johns Hopkins, who were doing a project in Trinidad and Tobago. And I got introduced to the organization. I didn't know there was a diabetes association. I got introduced and I wanted to volunteer. So I started to volunteer at our Princeton branch. Then I started to be a scientific advisor at the national level, and then I became vice president and then president. So I became involved in the organization because, one, I wanted to help. And many persons out there I know want to help, and we always encourage volunteers because I started as a volunteer and I eventually led the organization. It was a little bit difficult because I was a young person coming into an organization that's typically, you know, a disease that we think is really for older people, but it affects everyone. So it affects children, and it affects adults, and it affects older people. So we have quite a lot of diverse members in the organization and a lot of diverse members in the board of the organization as well now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you said that. People still think that diabetes is a disease for older persons. Yeah. I think a lot of the times when you're actually in a situation when you're not an older person, but you know, a family member or yourself even, or your child would have been diagnosed with diabetes, then you only realize, well, this is what happens on a larger scale, considering that Trinidad and Tobago, you know, and diabetes, that is one of the most prevalent diseases that we see in our population now.
Yeah, it is definitely. So right now, diabetes prevalence hovers at around 14.5 to 15% of our population. The thing is that globally, half of the people with diabetes aren't diagnosed. So we may have double that amount of people with diabetes in Trinidad and Tobago who don't know it. Yeah. Besides being diabetic, of course, if considering pre-diabetes, you could develop something called, pre-diabetes, which predates or preludes diabetes. And many more persons are affected by pre-diabetes because, again, when we talk about diabetes, we talk about the main type, which is the more prominent type, type 2 diabetes. This would affect persons. It used to affect adults only, and now we're seeing more and more children being affected by type 2 diabetes.
What do you think is the cause of that?
Yeah. So type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset diabetes. No, it was adult onset because it was brought on by conditions which resulted in insulin resistance, which means that the body is producing insulin, but the insulin isn't working as it should, or the cells aren't responding as it should. and of course glucose intolerance, meaning that your body isn't using sugar as it's supposed to use sugar. Because sugar is essential for you. You need sugar to survive. Sugar gives you energy. And even if you have too much sugar and your body is working fine, your body has mechanism to deal with it. But when you do gain weight, and weight gain is really the primary reason type 2 diabetes develops. When you do gain weight, and it happens over a period of time, and this is why we're seeing it more and more in younger children, you develop insulin resistance and you develop impaired glucose tolerance, which could lead to diabetes. So we're seeing younger and younger children, younger than 10 years old, developing prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. Before it was type 1, and I might talk about type 1 as well too, as a separate disease. But now we're seeing so many young children with type 2 diabetes.
Yeah. What are some of the signs and symptoms persons can look out for?
So there are many signs that you can look out for when you have diabetes or you're developing diabetes, but they are the top 4. And I always like to explain the top 4 and show the linkage. So the number 1 sign you might see and you might start to see is excess thirst. And the reason you're going to have excess thirst is because when you have diabetes, one of the main things that are going to happen is that the blood sugars are going to be high. And when your blood sugars are high, your body wants to balance that. And of course, if you eat something sweet or something salty, you feel thirsty, right? Yeah. Because your body wants to balance how much water there is in the blood. So you feel thirsty and you drink more water. So that's the first stage. That's the first symptom. Polydipsia, it's called. So you drink more water. When you drink more water, that water has to go somewhere. So you're going to pee more, you're going to urinate more, right? So that's called polyuria. So you're going to be having excess urination. You're going to want to urinate more than you normally would. Now, when you're urinating, what's going to come out in the urine is also sugar. Because your blood sugar is so high at some points in time, your cells aren't able to absorb all of that sugar. So that sugar comes out into the urine. And when that sugar comes out into the urine, that sugar which would have been used to give you energy, now isn't giving you as much energy, so your body has to turn to fat and burn fat. So that's going to cause sudden weight loss. So that's the third symptom. Because you're peeing out a lot of sugar, you have sudden weight loss. And also because you have that sudden weight loss and because you don't have access to all of that sugar, you're going to feel tired. You're going to feel lethargic. So that's really the 4 main symptoms of diabetes. So increased thirst, frequent urination, sudden weight loss, and feeling tired. And of course, all of that is coupled with the diagnostic criteria of having that elevated blood sugar.
Okay. How can persons confirm their a diagnosis of diabetes?
Yeah. So there are many confirmatory tests. What used to be done to confirm is something called an oral glucose tolerance test, which simply means you fast, you take a blood sugar test, and it usually comes from your veins. You get a sugar drink to have, and then of course you have blood sugar tests every half an hour for 2 hours. So that's still done, and of course it's used to diagnose gestational diabetes during pregnancy. But what we depend on more now is HbA1c. So your HbA1c is a quick and convenient test. You could do it most times with your finger, and we do it at the association with a finger stick. And this tells you your average blood sugar for the last 3 months. So it gives you the average blood sugar, and this allows us to tell if it is somebody is maybe diabetic or have diabetes, maybe pre-diabetic or maybe healthy. So the numbers you want to look out for is if you have an HbA1c below 5.7, that's usually healthy, a healthy range. Between 5.7 to 6.5 is where you're going to be in caution, because here is where you may be at risk for prediabetes or may be diagnosed with prediabetes. And greater than 6.5 is usually a diabetes diagnosis. So we use HbA1c, and you may have heard the Minister of Health talking about HbA1c and lowering your HbA1c, because it's a tool that you could use. Because if you know what your HbA1c and you make a little change, you cut out a bottle of soft drink, and then you go 3 months later and you take a HbA1c test and you see it's lowered, then you're going to see you're doing something good. Yeah. So HbA1c is used as a tool also by patients to be able to manage their diabetes and just manage their health overall. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned Minister of Health Terence Dial saying he was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he is very passionate about reducing the numbers when it comes to diabetes and hypertension and other lifestyle diseases. And recently he spoke about cutting out certain brands of soft drinks and certain foods and that kind of thing. I know that the association would have done a survey recently on the consumption of fast food. What can you tell us about the survey?
Yeah. So the survey was conducted last year, and we did it because it was in conjunction with a project we were doing with young people through our sixth form internship program. We wanted to find out what junk food, or the food that young people like to eat, does to your blood sugar. So we actually have a device called a continuous glucose monitor. You put it onto the arm and it gives you your blood sugar every 5 minutes. So we used those devices and we had them eat various types of foods. But as a prelude to that, we wanted to survey young people and find out what exactly they like to eat, because we wanted to know what we had to test. So from this survey, we actually had about 1,000 respondents from across Trinidad and Tobago, between the ages of about 11 to 35, so young people, right? So younger than me. So from this survey, what we realized is that about 88% of persons at least eat fast food at least once per week. And a third of all persons eat fast food at least 3 times per week. So that would be okay if the fast food was healthy, because you can't have healthy fast food. But coupled with that, when we ask them rather about their fruit and vegetable intake, for example, and you need about 4 to 5 servings of fruit and vegetable per day, fruit or vegetable, most of them would have only had a fruit once a week, if so much. So only about 13% of them had a fruit once a week. Only about 23% had a fruit once a week. So that's not even per day.
Right.
That's once per week. So most young people, and I mean young people because we're seeing young people now being affected more and more. So this is the reason why we would have done this survey, and we saw these results. We also saw what are the most prominent fast foods. So the most prominent fast food is a chicken and chips brand. The second on the list was Doubles, and then the third was another chicken and chips brand. So we know what the prominent fast foods are. We know that young people prefer to drink black soft drink. So black soft drink, whatever the brands are, that's the #1 consumed soft drink in Trinidad and Tobago. So because we know that, and because the minister would have called these names, and I applaud him for calling the names, because the thing is, we need to make some drastic changes. We need to take some drastic steps, because we've been talking and telling people, you know, you need to change, you need to do this, you need to do that. But change can happen at various levels. So you can have change at the individual level. You could have change where you talk about a community, or you could have change where you talk about the manufacturers making changes. And then, of course, you could have policy changes at a higher level, at government level, at a regional CARICOM level. So there are many things that can be done, and we're advocating for some of those changes, and that's what we put the press release out about.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about what the press release was about, especially for persons who may not have had access to the entire release.
So what we would have been advocating for is using evidence-based approaches to tackle the issue. So there are 2 sides of the same coin you could think about. One is that you could eliminate the things that are causing the problem, or try to eliminate the things that are causing the problem. And the second is to introduce or to promote things that are going to be opposite to the problem, or antagonistic to the problem. So one is that you could try to reduce or try to cut out the amount of fast foods available, or try to regulate, or try to introduce taxes or things like that. And that's something that can be done. So the 3 strategies that the Healthy Caribbean Coalition, which is an umbrella organization of civil society organizations around the Caribbean, the 3 strategies that have been proposed, because this has been demonstrated throughout the Caribbean, throughout the world rather, is 1, front of package labeling. Having labels at the front of a package that says simply high in sugar, high in salt, high in fat. And that's going to be able to allow consumers to make better choices, because you don't have to turn to the back of the label. You don't have to try to read. If it is you don't know how to read, or don't know how to interpret, or don't have the time to read, it's right in front of your face. The second thing is marketing. Now, marketing is huge, and I think marketing is one of the things we could definitely tackle first of all, because anywhere you turn in Trinidad and Tobago, there's a billboard for fast food. Any newspapers you pick up, I guarantee there's a full-page ad for fast food. When you turn on the TV or turn on the radio, you're hearing it. If you're going to the schools, you're seeing it. Every single school event, every single 5K, every single sports day in a school, you're seeing these brands sponsoring it. And they're not sponsoring it out of the goodness of their heart. They're sponsoring it because they want to build brand alliance, brand allegiance. It's marketing. So we need to target that. In certain countries, that's banned. In developed countries, that's banned. We need to get to that point. And the third, which I think was a hot topic throughout the country for the past week, which was taxation. So personally, I'm not an advocate of having a sugar tax or having a ultra-processed food tax. It has been used. It has been done, for example, in Barbados, in Mexico, in Chile, and they've had mixed results. And I don't think it's going to be appropriate for Trinidad and Tobago unless everything goes in or everything is lined up correctly. So I don't think taxation right now is the best option, but I do think front of package labeling, I do think working on marketing is the best option. And those are the strategies to remove things. Of course, the second part of that is what can you do to actually encourage people? What are the good things that you could do? So what we talk about is something called an obesogenic environment. So obesogenic environment, when the environment is conducive for people gaining weight, people developing non-communicable diseases. So here's where we talk about, we want people to eat healthier. We want people to cook more food. But we can't tell people to cook more food and eat healthier if you have certain barriers. So if you don't have enough money, then you can't purchase the thing they need to buy. If you don't have enough time, then you don't have the time to prepare it. If you don't know how to do it, if you don't have the education to know what you should and shouldn't have, then how would you know what to do? So those are barriers we need to tackle as well. And those are conversations we need to have. And we've been doing it at the association. We're trying very much to educate people and tell you, here's what. If you want to make a meal on a budget, here's what you have to do. But quite frankly, when you think about food, there are various factors that affect if people want to eat something. There's the taste, there's the cost, there's the convenience, and then of course health, how healthy it is. Right. Most people are going to choose things, and most people choose fast food because it's in its name. It's fast, it's convenient. And when you have limited time, when you have limited energy to prepare meals or to seek out healthier foods, then you're going to grab the thing that it's closest in front of you. So here's where we could work with manufacturers, we could work with supermarkets to actually create healthier fast foods. And the minister was in conversation with some of these manufacturers last year. And I'm still waiting for that to happen. I'm waiting for these conglomerates to introduce healthier options so people could actually pick it up.
You spoke about collaboration to an extent with the Ministry of Health. Has there been any programs that between the association and the Ministry of Health? And the minister, when he was here, also spoke about bringing in the education ministry within this entire circle. Yeah. I know the surveys between 11 and 35 years old, you know, that's a catchment area for education. So is there any collaboration happening in between there?
Definitely. Collaboration is important. To do this thing, you need to have a whole of government, whole of society approach. When we talk about whole of government, we do have the closest relationship with the Ministry of Health. Of course, we do have relationship to the Ministry of Education as well. But concerning the Ministry of Health and the minister, we do have a very close relationship with both the minister and the Ministry of Health and the staff there. The Diabetes Association is one of the NGOs who work closely under the TT Moves program, which is a program specifically targeted towards reducing NCDs, non-communicable diseases. So we do work with the ministry quite a lot, and the ministry has supported our activities for a very long time. Right now, the ministry is supporting our National Diabetes School Quiz that's going on for Standard 3s. We have our camps coming up in a couple of weeks for children living with diabetes and children affected by diabetes. We have our symposium, and of course, the ministry does provide the association with subvention that allows us to do all of the other projects that we have going on.
Okay. Would you say that the subvention is enough?
Well, money is never enough, because the more you have is the more that you could do. Yeah. Of course, with what we have, we also need to supplement that with fundraising activities. And I think half of the work that the association does, or any NGO does, is raising money, because you need to raise money to do the work. So, of course, we would always like to have more money, and we are appealing for more money. But the more that we have is the more that we could do. But the thing is, the beauty of an NGO and the beauty of our NGO is that we're run by volunteers. So most of the staff, even the board members, I myself am a volunteer. So because you have volunteers who are putting out their time and effort to do things, you don't have to pay staff or as much staff. So you get a lot more done with a very little bit of money.
Right.
So that's very important, a very commendable feature of most NGOs. So this is why, you know, just getting a little bit of money, $1 million could go extremely long way with us compared to $1 million for a private company. So, you know, so we're always looking for that additional funding.
Yeah. Now, for persons who are diagnosed with diabetes, you know, there's medication involved, there's insulin, there's various tablets, there's testing involved as well. I know that these things are expensive. Now, I'm talking from personal experience, right? Now, these things are expensive. And I know some persons buy them, but are these drugs also available via CDAP? And what can you tell us about the availability of those drugs, especially in pharmacies locally?
So on the CDAP program, on the formulary, there are all of the essential drugs for diabetes. So there are all of the oral hypoglycemic medications, the tablets, and the insulin that is on the formulary is insulin, which is good, and it is insulin which can be used to lower your blood sugar. Of course, there are always newer, more expensive versions. There are newer versions of insulin. There are synthetic versions that work much better, but they're extremely expensive. Now, we have to understand our health system is provided or provides these services free to persons. So I just told you we have about 14.5% of our population living with diabetes. Many of them don't really treat it, but the ones who do treat it, it's almost, I would believe, about 100,000 persons who will be within the system and accessing the CDAP program. Now, this means that it costs a lot. And if it costs a lot and you have to implement a free program, then you need to be able to provide things that work just as fine. So you're not going to get the brand name drugs, but of course the generic drugs are going to work just as fine. Generic just means there's the name attached to it. So all of the drugs that are available work efficiently and work extremely well. The problem we are having is that persons aren't taking the medications as they should, or they aren't advised that, you know, taking the medication isn't the end all. Most people in Trinidad and Tobago seem to think that if you're diagnosed with diabetes, you take a tablet and then you continue eating the cake, drinking the soft drink and sitting down in front of the TV, and the tablet is going to cure the diabetes, or it's going to deal with it. And then they go like that for a few months, their HbA1c raises, and then they say, this tablet are working good. This is a cheap tablet they're giving me. But it's not a tablet. So medication, to be honest, medication is just about 20% of your diabetes control. 20% or so of your diabetes control is medication, for type 2 diabetes, that is. The rest of it is all of the other changes you need to make. You need to increase your activity, physical activity level. You need to change your diet. You need to deal with stress or decrease your levels of stress. You need to talk about even sleep. So all of these things contribute to your diabetes control, because those are the things that would have caused the development of diabetes. Okay. So unless those things are dealt with, then taking medication really not going to do what you think it's going to do. It's not meant to do that. You have to work with it in tandem with lifestyle changes, and all non-communicable diseases are the same.
Yeah. No, so then we have an issue where compliance is concerned. People looking for a quick fix, like they're looking for a quick meal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And compliance is very important. You want persons to be able to know as well when they should take their medications, and that comes into what the doctor has, or the role of the physician. And again, because we have a system where a physician may have to see at a health center, he may have to see 100 persons a day. You can't sit down with 100 persons a day and give them the advice that they need, because then you're not going to be able to have enough time to see everybody. And everybody be waiting room, sitting down, getting angry. So this is why there are other resources persons need to access. Like the Diabetes Association, we have 20 branches across the country. Here you could be able to join, you could be able to be part of these branches, come out to meetings, learn about how to take care of your diabetes, and get involved. You also have other professionals like nutritionists and physiotherapists and exercise physiologists, and all of these people complement what the doctor does. So those are the types of resources which are available in the health system, in the public health system, but also you could access them privately. So it's not just a doctor, it's not just a nurse, there are other health professionals involved in taking care of diabetes. This multidisciplinary approach needs to be stressed on, I would say.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about the information. Where can persons go for information, especially through your association?
Yeah. So the Diabetes Association of Trinidad and Tobago is accessible. I would say extremely accessible. You could give us a call. Our phone number is 607-3288. Our head office is in Chaguanas, but we also have a very strong social media presence. So we are on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, and our website is diabetes-tt.org, and you can get all of the information that you need by going to those websites. We have lots of free activities, free screening, and free testing. So anyone, open to anyone, you don't have to be a member, and you can reach out to us for our services and for our help.
And to volunteer, of course.
And to volunteer, yes.
Yeah.
We need a lot of volunteers.
All right. What message will you give to persons who are possibly pre-diabetic, because you said a lot of people don't know that they're in the pre-diabetic stage or even diabetic. What message can you give to those people in terms of knowing your numbers and, of course, get moving?
The point I want to make about having pre-diabetes is that when you do catch it, and catching pre-diabetes is lucky, is a good thing. Because if you catch that you have pre-diabetes, you could actually reverse it. So you could actually reverse it by changing your lifestyle, reducing your weight for most persons, changing up how you eat, how much you exercise. And if you're able to do those things, you could be able to reverse it to the point that you don't develop diabetes. So this is why pre-diabetes and diagnosing pre-diabetes and screening for diabetes and pre-diabetes is so important. So piece of advice I would like to say to give is know your numbers, reach out to the association, take a HbA1c test if you can, and make small changes which are sustainable, and those small changes will be able to add up over a period of time.
Now, Dr. Dhanoo, can you expand on those changes?
So most persons want to go from 0 to 100 in one day, meaning that every day you're doing the things that you know you shouldn't be doing, and then all of a sudden you get inspiration and say, you know what, I want to be healthy. So today I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to eat a salad. And the day before I was eating cake and ice cream and chicken and chips, but today I want to eat the salad, and I'm going to do this every day from now. For most persons, that doesn't work because it's not sustainable. If you're accustomed doing something all the time, then you can't change rapidly like that. So you have to make small, sustainable changes. So what you could say today is, I'm not going to drink that soft drink. I'll give you an example. Half a glass of soft drink is about 100 calories, right? So if you drink that 100 calories every day, say you're drinking that soft drink every single day, that adds up to about 3,000 calories. 3,000 calories for about a month, right? So 3,000 calories for about a month. If you do that for a year, right? So if you do that for a year, that's 30,000 calories, right? So 3,000, 30,000 calories. That adds up to about a pound. So if you just do that, you gain a pound every year. So in 10 years, you gain 10 pounds. But if you do that, if you cut off a half a glass of soft drink, then you could be able to start losing weight just by cutting off a half a glass of soft drink. So that's one little thing you could do, and it could change your life completely. Another thing you could do is, say, for example, sauces. The garlic sauce. Although garlic sauce, primary thing is mayonnaise, and primary ingredient in mayonnaise is oil, right? So if you cut out mayonnaise, then that could allow you to lose weight as well. That could allow you to make significant changes, a lot of sugars in that as well. So just those two little things somebody could do, and you could see tremendous changes in your life. And that's something you could commit to. You could say, I am not going to drink this today. I am not going to eat this today. And this is all. And you could eat everything else you're normally eating, do everything else you're normally doing, and then in a few months' time, add something else to the regime. Say, okay, you know what, I'm going to start walking. Instead of sitting down, I'm going to take the stairs. Or instead of just walking for one day, for 30 minutes, I'm going to do 2 days or 3 days. And that's additive, and that builds habits, and that builds healthy habits. So when that happens over a period of time, then you see sustainable changes because you could be able to maintain it. So, you know, so that's basically the advice I would give.
Yeah. Now you're talking to people who like the soft drink and like the sauce, because, you know, we like to lather everything with these sauces, right? So, you know, a lot of people will look at this and say, well, God here want me to eat nothing.
No, I never
what
said that.
What can we do
as I said,
in
you could eat
replacement?
everything, like as everything you're normally doing, do it. Make one change. Make that one change for a month, and you will see that additive change over a period of time is going to be significant. Because if you can make one healthy change and you can maintain it, then that's going to add something to your life. And when you see that, that's going to inspire you to add more. And you add like that. So instead of having all the sauce, reduce the amount that you have. Instead of having the soft drink every day, maybe have it once a week. Maybe substitute with some water, substitute with some club soda. That is often a very enticing alternative to soft drink because they still get the bubbles, still get the fizz. So do that. So those little things that can be done, and we see tremendous changes when people implement that.
Yeah, so it's a lifestyle change, but it's also an entire mental change. You're talking about a society that has a serious sugar addiction.
It is an addiction, yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason you're addicted because you need sugar. You need sugar to live. And that's the reason why sugar is pleasurable. That's the reason why salt is pleasurable. Because if it is that salt and sugar didn't taste good, we wouldn't want to eat it, and we wouldn't want to survive, but we need it to survive. But the thing is that because of that, it's difficult to know when to stop. And our body has hormones that will allow us and tell us when to stop. But again, when you have insulin resistance, when you have obesity, when you have excess fat in your body, and when you have some of the other predisposing conditions that would cause you to develop diabetes, then these hormones sometimes go out of whack. And your body no longer knows when you're full. Your body no longer knows when you're supposed to stop. And that's one of the issues we have as well.
All right. Now, we spoke about it very briefly, type 1 diabetes. Could you tell us just a little bit about type 1 diabetes?
Yeah. So type 1 diabetes is one of the rarer forms of diabetes. Of course, you have type 2, which 95% of persons who have diabetes would have. Type 1 is a rarer form. So about 5% of our population with diabetes would have type 1. And type 1 is an autoimmune condition. So it's not about weight, it's not about eating bad and exercising and stuff. It's an autoimmune condition. So it's a separate disease altogether. The cause is different. So you can't go from type 1 to 2 or 2 to 1, as most people think in Trinidad and Tobago. Type 1, you tend to have presentation early in life. So as young as a few months old, a few years old, and you tend to see this type 1 diabetes being developed in children. For some reason, which we don't know about, and when I say we, all of the scientific community around the world, we don't really know the reason why, but your body thinks, your immune system thinks your pancreas is something foreign and attacks it. So that's what an autoimmune disease is. And because it attacks the pancreas, it can no longer make insulin. So for these children, because often it starts off very young in life, they need to inject insulin because your body naturally makes it. If you can't, the pancreas are working, pancreas is destroyed, the cells are destroyed, you need to inject. And when you inject the insulin, then you need to take the insulin for the rest of your life. Because of course, if you don't, you're gonna die. Now we have insulin for the past 100 years. So last year, we celebrated 100 years of insulin. So around the world, we only have insulin 100 years now. So before that, if it is someone living with diabetes or a child was diagnosed with diabetes, they had to lie down on a bed and die. Diabetes was a death sentence. But insulin now allowed children to now live long, healthy, normal lives. And in Trinidad and Tobago, we have about 150 to 200 children under the age of 18 with type 1 diabetes. And most of them are with the Diabetes Association, Diabetic Youth Support Branch. Some of them are going to come to our camps. And if you look at them, they look normal, healthy. Unless their blood sugar starts to go low or high, then you see issues. But they look normal, they look healthy. Type 1 diabetes in these children happen sometimes overnight, over the course of a few days or a few weeks. So it's very, very rapid. And it's traumatic because for a parent, you have a healthy child, and all of a sudden the child starts to get sick, the child starts to vomit, the child starts to get very weak. And one of the classic signs of diabetes in children is bedwetting. So if a child has never wet the bed before or hasn't wet the bed in a long time, and all of a sudden they start wetting the bed, that's frequent urination. So that may be a sign that your child may or may not have diabetes or type 1 diabetes or developing type 1 or even type 2, but it is a sign that you should take the child to the doctor. So type 1 diabetes, again, very traumatic for the parent and the child, but we are trying at the association and through our support group to work with these families. And you see the emotional distress some of these families go through, because you now have a child that, and for some children, they need to test their blood sugar. They need to stick their finger about 10 times a day because they're running around the place. The parent has to go to work and the parent doesn't know what's going on. So that's why the CGMs that we introduced last year, children are now having the CGMs. We're trying to get funds for it. So they could have the CGM on their arm and their parent could be at work and they could see it on their phone if the blood sugar is going low or high and know what to do. The parent could be able to sleep at night, because now parents with type 1 children don't sleep, because in the middle of the night, if you don't get up and check the child's blood sugar goes so low, the child goes into a coma. And it's the sad reality of type 1 diabetes. And this happens every day. This is what their life is every single day. So it's extremely traumatic for some of these children, well, all of these children. Yeah. And this is why we try to help them, and this is why the camps are so important.
As we wrap, Dr. Dhanoo, what are your final thoughts?
Again, I want to thank you for inviting me, and of course having the representation of the Diabetes Association here. I want to reach out to persons who may want to volunteer, persons who may want to assist. Even corporate Trinidad and Tobago, of course, we're always looking for funds. We're always looking for support to do more, because again, the more we have is the more that we can do. But we are advocating for people to just make that first step. Reach out to the association. We provide free services, free eye testing, free blood sugar screening. We're about to start a foot program, a foot screening program. So reach out to us, get involved, join one of our branches, and assist. And if you can't assist, then get someone to assist in your family, or if you need assistance, we are here for you.
Yeah. All right, and that's our show. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Dhanoo, on another episode of Delving Deeper.
Thanks for having me.
Join us again for another episode of Delving Deeper, this time next week. I am your host, Diana Carter, and from all of us here, have a good night.